Think about it for a moment. Procrastination is not laziness, it's not weakness, and it's not some moral failing. Procrastination is a message. It's a whisper from the depths of your being, a gentle nudge from your soul saying, hey, slow down, look closer. Are you sure this is the path you're meant to be on? What if that delay you're so quick to label as a flaw is actually wisdom? What if it's your inner guide urging you to align with something deeper, something truer? Pause for a second and let that sink in. Because procrastination, it's not the enemy, it's a mirror. And the reflection it shows you isn't about time management, it's about alignment. You see, we live in a world obsessed with doing, the grind, the hustle, the never-ending to-do list. But here's the thing, doing isn't living. Productivity isn't purpose. And sometimes in the frenzy of trying to check every box, we lose sight of what really matters. That's when procrastination steps in, not to sabotage you, but to save you. Have you ever noticed that the tasks you put off the most are often the ones that feel the most misaligned? Maybe you're dragging your feet on that project not because you're lazy, but because deep down it doesn't resonate with who you are. Maybe your hesitation isn't failure, it's your truth fighting to be heard. Think back to the last time you delayed something, not the quick delay because you were tired or distracted, but the kind of procrastination that feels heavy, like a resistance deep in your chest. What was really going on? Was it fear? Was it doubt? Or was it something more profound, your inner wisdom gently steering you away from a path that doesn't serve your highest self? Let me share something with you. I once met a woman, let's call her Sarah. Sarah was brilliant, driven, the kind of person everyone admired. She had this big corporate job, a corner office, the works, but she kept procrastinating on this one big project. Weeks went by and her frustration grew. Why can't I just do it, she'd ask. But then one day it hit her she didn't want to do it, not because it was hard, but because it wasn't hers. That project, that job, that life, it wasn't hers. And her procrastination? It wasn't laziness. It was her soul saying, this isn't you. How often do we do that? How often do we push ourselves to complete something that deep down we know doesn't feel right? And when we hesitate, we beat ourselves up for it. But what if instead of punishing yourself for the delay, you stopped and asked, what is this trying to teach me? Here's a powerful truth, your soul knows the way. And when you're straying from that path, it has a way of pulling the brakes. That pause, that delay, that feeling of resistance, it's there for a reason. It's not a roadblock, it's a signpost. And it's saying, look again. Align yourself. But I know what you're thinking. What if I'm just making excuses? And yes, sometimes we do, but there's a difference between avoiding a task out of fear and delaying a task because it's out of alignment. Fear feels like panic. It's loud, frantic, desperate. Misalignment feels different. It's a quiet discomfort, a nagging sense that something isn't right. Pay attention to that feeling. It's trying to guide you. And let's be real, sometimes procrastination isn't about avoiding work, it's about avoiding the wrong work. It's about your inner self saying, I refuse to waste my energy on something that doesn't matter. Imagine if we honored that voice instead of silencing it. Imagine if we trusted it. Here's the catch though. Procrastination can also be a mask for fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of stepping into the unknown. So how do you know the difference? You listen, you tune in. You ask yourself, is this resistance because I'm scared? Or because I'm not aligned, and then you act accordingly. If it's fear, you face it. If it's misalignment, you shift. Now let's talk about alignment. Alignment isn't about doing what's easy, it's about doing what feels true. It's about creating a life that reflects who you really are, not who you think you should be, or who the world expects you to be, but the real, unfiltered you. When you're in alignment, work doesn't feel like work. Effort doesn't feel like struggle. And procrastination, it fades away because you're no longer fighting yourself. But here's the thing, alignment takes courage. It takes honesty. It takes a willingness to stop, reflect, and course correct when needed. It's not about getting it perfect, it's about getting it real. And that's what procrastination is asking you to do, to get real. to listen to your soul and trust its guidance. So the next time you find yourself procrastinating, don't beat yourself up. Don't call yourself lazy. Instead, get curious. Ask yourself, what is this really about? Is it fear? Is it doubt? Or is it something deeper, a signal from your soul asking you to pause, to realign, to choose differently? Because here's the truth: you are not here to just do. You are here to be, to create, to live a life that feels right, not just looks right. And sometimes procrastination is the very thing that reminds you of that. So honor it, learn from it, and let it guide you back to yourself. Excuses. Think about that word for a moment. They're nothing more than lies we tell ourselves, wrapped up in a cozy blanket of false comfort. They whisper to us, it's okay to wait, it's okay to settle, you'll get to it later. But here's the hard truth: every time you say, I'll do it later, you're not just postponing a task, you're postponing your life. Let that sink in. Every excuse is a tiny act of self-betrayal. It's a subtle denial of your power, your creativity, your capacity to shape the world around you. And the most dangerous part? Excuses feel good, at least for a moment. They give you an out, they let you off the hook. But the price? Oh, the price is steep. Because excuses rob you of your now. And now is all you've got. So, ask yourself, how many dreams have you deferred because of a single well-placed excuse? How many times have you traded your potential for the fleeting comfort of avoidance? And here's the kicker: those excuses, they're not even real. They're stories. Stories you've convinced yourself to believe. Let's break this down. When you say, I'm too tired, what are you really saying? You're saying, I don't want to push myself today. When you say, I'll start tomorrow, you're really saying, I'm afraid to start now. And when you tell yourself it's not the right time, what you're truly saying is, I'm scared of failing. Every excuse is a mask, a cover for the truth you're not ready to face. But here's the thing: the truth doesn't go away. It waits. Patiently, quietly, until you're ready to stop running and start living. Now, I know this isn't easy to hear. We all have our reasons, our justifications, our neatly packaged rationalizations, but let's call them what they are: excuses. And excuses don't serve you. They don't elevate you. They don't move you closer to the life you deserve. They chain you to the ground when you were born to fly. Think about the last time you made an excuse. Really think about it. Maybe it was small, like putting off a workout, or maybe it was big, like delaying that business idea you've been dreaming about. Whatever it was, ask yourself, what did that excuse cost me? Because every excuse has a price. Every later steals a little piece of your now, and here's the irony: the energy you spend justifying your excuses is often greater than the energy it would take to just do the thing. Isn't that wild? I met a man once, we'll call him Jack. Jack was full of ideas, brilliant ideas, but every time he started to move forward, he found a reason to stop. I'm too busy, he'd say, or I don't have enough money yet. Years passed, and Jack's ideas stayed locked in his mind. One day I asked him, what are you waiting for? And you know what he said? I'm waiting for the perfect time, perfect time. Let me tell you something: the perfect time doesn't exist. It's a myth, a convenient illusion we use to justify staying in our comfort zone. You don't need the perfect time. You don't need the perfect conditions. You don't need every single piece of the puzzle in place. You just need to start right here, right now. Because life isn't waiting for you. Opportunities aren't waiting for you. The world keeps turning whether you show up or not. And every moment you spend waiting is a moment you'll never get back. Now, let me ask you this. What would happen if you stopped making excuses? If you stopped lying to yourself and started living for yourself? Can you imagine the freedom, the power, the sheer joy of breaking free from the weight of your own self-imposed limitations? Let's get practical. The next time you catch yourself saying, I'll do it later, stop. Catch yourself in the act. And then ask yourself, why not now say it out loud? Why not? If you can't come up with a good answer, a real answer, then you know it's time to act. And let me tell you, there is no greater antidote to excuses than action. Action dissolves doubt. Action shatters fear. Action is the ultimate proof that you're stronger than the stories you tell yourself. And don't get me wrong, this isn't about being perfect. It's not about grinding yourself into the ground or never taking a moment to rest. It's about being honest with yourself. It's about recognizing when your excuses are holding you back and choosing consciously to move forward anyway. Because here's the truth, you are capable of so much more than you realize. Your potential is limitless. But potential means nothing without action. You could have the greatest ideas, the biggest dreams, the most extraordinary vision for your life, but if you don't act on them, they're just fantasies. And excuses, they're the walls that keep those fantasies locked away. So I'll leave you with this. The next time you feel an excuse rising up, don't let it take root, don't let it grow. Instead, replace it with a question. What if I could push past this? What if I could do it now? What if I could create the life I've been dreaming of? Because the answer is you can. You always could. And the only thing standing in your way was you. Success is waiting for you right there, just beyond the first step. Can you feel it? It's not a distant dream, not some far-off destination. It's closer than you think. But here's the thing, the hardest part is always starting. That's where most of us falter. The resistance feels like a mountain, doesn't it? Immovable, daunting, impossible to scale. But what if I told you that mountain isn't as solid as it seems? What if it's just a mirage, a trick of the mind designed to test your will? Let me ask you this, how many dreams have you let slip away because you couldn't take that first step? Be honest with yourself. Think of all the plans, ideas, and passions you buried under layers of hesitation. Why? Because starting feels risky, it feels uncertain. And that fear, that resistance, it grips you like a heavy chain. But here's the truth, once you take that first step, even a small one, the chain breaks. Every step after that gets lighter, easier, more natural. Success is not some grand leap into the unknown. It's a series of tiny steps, each one chipping away at the wall of resistance. Resistance. Let's talk about that for a second. Resistance isn't your enemy, it's your compass. It points directly at what matters most. Think about it, why do you feel the most resistance toward the things that could transform your life? Starting that book you've been dreaming of writing? Launching that business? Changing a habit that no longer serves you? Resistance shows up because these things matter. It's a signal, not a stop sign. It's the universe saying, here lies your growth. Push through, and you'll discover who you're meant to be. Now, I know what you're thinking, but it's so hard to start. Of course it is. That's the nature of the first step. It demands courage, but here's the secret. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's action in the presence of it. Feel the fear, acknowledge it, and then move anyway. You don't have to be fearless to take the first step. You just have to be willing. Let me share a story. There was a man, let's call him Mark, who always wanted to run a marathon. For years, he dreamed about it. He bought the gear, researched training plans, even visualized crossing the finish line. But he never started. Why? Because the idea of running 26 miles felt overwhelming. It wasn't until one day when a friend challenged him to simply lace up his shoes and run for 5 minutes that everything changed. 5 minutes, that's it. He didn't have to think about the marathon, the miles, or the training. Just 5 minutes. And you know what happened? That first step led to another, then another, until eventually Mark crossed the finish line of his first marathon. Not because he tackled the whole mountain at once, but because he took that single simple step. The hardest part is starting, but the reward is breaking through. Think of it like breaking through a paper wall. On this side, it looks solid, unyielding. But the moment you push, even gently, it tears apart. And on the other side, freedom, opportunity, growth. Let's get personal for a moment. Close your eyes and think about something you've been putting off, something you've been telling yourself you'll do tomorrow, or next week, or someday. See it in your mind. Feel the weight of that delay. Now imagine taking the first step, not the 10th or the 100th, just the first. How does it feel? Scary.
Yes.
But also freeing, isn't it? Because in that moment, you're no longer stuck. You're moving. And movement is where the magic happens. Here's a little trick: shrink the first step until it feels almost too easy. If writing a book feels overwhelming, start by jotting down a single sentence. If starting a workout routine feels impossible, commit to just putting on your sneakers. If launching a business feels terrifying, spend 10 minutes brainstorming ideas. Small steps compound. One leads to two, and before you know it, momentum takes over. And once you've got momentum, resistance doesn't stand a chance. But let's be real, it's not just about starting, it's about what starting does to your mind, your soul, your sense of self. Every first step you take, no matter how small, rewires your brain. It sends a message: I can do this, I am capable, I am moving toward my potential. It's like building a muscle. The more you start, the stronger you become. And soon, starting isn't the hardest part anymore. It's just another step in your journey. Think of a rocket launching into space. The hardest part isn't cruising through the stars, it's breaking through the atmosphere. That's where the resistance is greatest. That's where the fuel burns the hottest. But once it breaks through, effortless, weightless, limitless. Your first step is the rocket's launch. Yes, it's hard. Yes, it takes energy. But once you're through, the sky isn't even the limit. So what's stopping you? Is it fear of failure? Fear of judgment? Fear of the unknown? Let me tell you something. Fear is just a story you've been telling yourself. And like any story, you can rewrite it. Instead of saying, what if I fail, try saying, what if I succeed? Instead of, what if I'm not good enough, say, what if I'm more than enough? Shift the narrative, and the first step becomes less daunting. Now let me challenge you, right here, right now. Think of one thing, just one, that you've been procrastinating on. It doesn't have to be big. Maybe it's making a phone call, writing an email, or taking a walk around the block. Whatever it is, decide to start. Not tomorrow, not later, now. Because success is waiting for you. It's right there on the other side of that first step. And all it's asking is for you to meet it halfway. Stop for a second and ask yourself this: why am I doing what I'm doing? Not the surface level answer, not the because I have to respond, but the real deep down truth. Because if you don't know the why behind your actions, you're running on empty. And that emptiness, that's why you're chasing motivation like it's some magical fuel you can just stumble upon. But let me tell you something: motivation is a fleeting spark. Meaning is the fire that never goes out. Think about this. How many times have you told yourself, I'll start when I feel motivated, as if motivation is going to knock on your door and hand you the perfect energy to get things done? But here's the catch: it doesn't work that way. Motivation isn't something you wait for. It's something you create. And you create it by finding meaning. You see, when you connect to meaning, everything changes. Suddenly you're not dragging yourself through the motions. You're pulled by purpose, fueled by something bigger than the task in front of you. Let me give you an example. Imagine a person digging a ditch. It's hard work, backbreaking, exhausting. Now imagine someone else digging that same ditch, but this time they know it's to lay the foundation for a hospital that will save lives. The work hasn't changed. The effort is still the same, but the meaning transforms everything. Now ask yourself this: what's my ditch? What am I digging for? Because if you're only chasing motivation, you'll quit when it gets hard. But when you're chasing meaning, quitting isn't even an option. Meaning gives you resilience. It gives you energy you didn't know you had. Let me tell you a story. There was a man who hated his job. Every morning he'd wake up dreading the day ahead. He'd procrastinate, make excuses, and barely scrape by. One day, someone asked him, "Why do you work?" And he replied, "To pay the bills, that's it." That was his entire reason. Now compare that to another man who works the same job, but every night he comes home with joy because he knows his paycheck is funding his child's education. For him, every hour spent at work is an investment in his child's future. The job hasn't changed, but the why makes all the difference. So I'll ask you again, what's your why? And don't say it's money or success or checking off some societal expectation. Those things might drive you for a while, but they won't sustain you. They don't feed your soul. True meaning comes from within. It's about connection, contribution, growth. It's about doing something that feels aligned with who you are and what you stand for. Here's the thing: you don't need motivation to start. You need clarity. Clarity on what matters to you, because when you're clear about your why, the how takes care of itself. You stop waiting for the perfect moment. You stop doubting your abilities. You just move, you just do. And that movement creates its own energy, its own momentum. Think of it this way: imagine standing on the edge of a cliff. The drop is terrifying, but the view is breathtaking. Now imagine someone standing behind you shouting, "Jump!" You've got this, that's motivation. But it's external, temporary, and often not enough to make you leap. But now imagine looking over the edge and seeing someone you love waiting at the bottom, arms outstretched. That's meaning. And suddenly jumping doesn't feel like a risk, it feels like a necessity. So stop chasing the cheerleader, start chasing the cause, the thing that lights you up from the inside, the thing that makes you feel alive. Now let's get practical, because meaning isn't just some abstract idea, it's tangible, it's actionable. Start by asking yourself 3 questions. What do I care about? Who do I want to help? What legacy do I want to leave? Don't overthink it. Let the answers come naturally. And when they do, write them down, make them real, make them real, make them your compass. Here's another exercise. Look at your to-do list. Seriously, pull it out. Now, for each item, ask yourself, why does this matter? If you can't find a reason, maybe it doesn't deserve your time. Maybe it's noise, not signal. And here's the real kicker: if the tasks on your list don't connect to something meaningful, you'll keep procrastinating. Not because you're lazy, but because your soul is saying, this isn't it. Let me share something personal. There was a time in my life when I felt stuck. I was busy, sure, but I wasn't fulfilled. Every day felt like a grind. Then one morning I sat down and asked myself, what's the point? And I realized I didn't have one. I was doing things because I thought I was supposed to, not because they mattered to me. That day, I made a choice. I would stop chasing motivation and start chasing meaning. I would only pursue things that felt aligned with my values, my passions, my purpose. And you know what happened? The procrastination disappeared. Not because the work got easier, but because it finally mattered. Here's the truth: when you find your why, you don't have to force yourself to act. The energy is already there. The drive is already there. It's like a river flowing effortlessly towards its destination. But when you're disconnected from meaning, it's like trying to push that river uphill. Exhausting. Impossible. So I challenge you, right now, today, take a step back from the doing. Stop trying to power through with willpower alone. Instead, ask yourself, why am I doing this? Who am I doing it for? And if the answers don't ignite something in you, maybe it's time to rethink the path you're on. Because life isn't about checking boxes, it's about living with intention. It's about creating something that feels true to you. And when you align with that truth, when you chase meaning instead of motivation, the procrastination fades. The resistance fades, and you're left with this unstoppable, undeniable force that carries you forward, not because you have to, but because you want to. Because it matters. Because it's who you are. Think about this: your habits today are not just fleeting moments, they're the architects of your tomorrow. Right now, in this very moment, you are laying the bricks of your future life. Every choice, every action, no matter how small, is a seed. And seeds don't stay seeds, do they? They grow, they sprout into something bigger. So I ask you, what are you planting? What are you nurturing with your habits? Because here's the thing: you don't wake up one day successful, fulfilled, or thriving by accident. No, you wake up to the reality you've been building every single day, consciously or not. The question is, are you building a reality you're excited to live in? Or are you letting it be built by default, by autopilot routines and unexamined choices? Let me give you a small example, something deceptively simple. Imagine your alarm goes off in the morning and you hit snooze. Not once, not twice, maybe 3 or 4 times. That one act, it seems harmless. But what's really happening? You're reinforcing a habit of delay. You're starting your day with a message to yourself: not yet. I'm not ready. Maybe later that habit, repeated day after day, begins to define how you approach your life. Now flip the script. Imagine the same alarm, but this time you decide no snooze. You stretch, you breathe deeply, you rise. You've just planted a seed of action, of readiness, of respect for your time. It's a small moment, but small moments compounded over time, they become momentum. They become transformation. Pause here for a second, reflect. What small choices are you repeating every day? Are they carrying you closer to your dreams, or are they pulling you further away? Habits are sneaky, aren't they? They don't feel like they matter much in the moment. One skipped workout, one late night binge on your phone, one more scroll through social media when you could be working on that passion project. But let me ask you this, if you repeated that habit every day for a year, where would it lead you? Would you be proud of the destination, or would you feel stuck, wishing you'd chosen differently? You see, life isn't about one grand moment of change. It's about the small, consistent choices that stack up day after day after day. Think of it like drops of water filling a jar. Each drop feels insignificant, almost invisible. But keep adding those drops, and one day that jar overflows. That's the power of habits. Let me tell you about a man I met years ago. Let's call him David. David was stuck in a cycle, constantly complaining about his job, his relationships, his health. I want to change, he'd say, but I just don't have time. Sound familiar? One day I asked him, what do you do with your evenings? He hesitated. Well, I usually watch TV to unwind, maybe scroll through my phone for a bit. I asked how many hours. He laughed nervously. Maybe 3 or 4. 3 or 4 hours every evening. That's 20 to 30 hours a week. Over a year, that's over 1,000 hours. Imagine what he could build with 1,000 hours learning a new skill, building a side business, deepening relationships. But his habits were building a reality of frustration and stagnation, not the life he said he wanted. And here's the kicker, David didn't need to change everything overnight. He didn't need to suddenly transform into a productivity machine. He just needed to shift one habit. So we started small, just 30 minutes a night, spent learning something he was passionate about. That one shift sparked a ripple effect. Over time, 30 minutes became an hour. An hour became 2. Within a year, he'd started a side hustle, gained confidence, and felt alive again. One habit, one seed changed his reality. Now think about your own life. What habits are you holding on to that aren't serving you? Be honest with yourself. Are you planting seeds of growth or seeds of stagnation? Because your habits don't lie. They reveal your priorities, your mindset, your future. And let's get real for a moment. Change is uncomfortable. Building new habits, it's not glamorous, it's not Instagram worthy, it's waking up early when you want to sleep in, it's choosing a book over a binge-worthy series. It's saying no to what's easy so you can say yes to what's meaningful. But here's the truth, the discomfort of growth is temporary. The regret of staying the same, that lasts. I want you to imagine something. Picture your future self 5 years from now. Close your eyes if you can. Who is that person? What does their life look like? Are they healthy, vibrant, fulfilled, or are they stressed, stuck, and longing for a different path? Now, here's the twist at future self. They're not some distant stranger. They're being built by the habits you're living today. So ask yourself, what would your future self thank you for? Would they thank you for scrolling mindlessly through your phone, or for investing that time into something meaningful? Would they thank you for skipping that workout, or for showing up for your health, even when it was hard? Would they thank you for procrastinating, or for taking one small step forward? Because here's the thing, your habits are choices, and your choices, they are your power. Every day you get to decide, am I moving closer to the life I want or further away? Am I building a reality I'm proud of or settling for a reality by default? Let's make it practical. You don't have to overhaul your entire life today. Start with one habit, just one. Maybe it's drinking a glass of water first thing in the morning. Maybe it's writing down 3 things you're grateful for. Maybe it's dedicating 15 minutes to a project that lights you up. Whatever it is, commit to it. Show up for it. because consistency, not perfection, is what creates change. And here's a powerful thought to carry with you. Every small choice matters, every single one. The choice to act, the choice to delay, the choice to believe in yourself or not, it all adds up. So I'll ask you again, what are you choosing? What reality are you building today? Because your tomorrow depends on it. You don't have to finish, you just have to begin. Let those words settle into your soul for a moment, because isn't that the thing we forget most often? We stare at the mountain ahead, that huge, intimidating peak, and convince ourselves it's too high, too steep, too impossible. But what if I told you this? You're not here to conquer the whole mountain today. You're only here to take one step. Just one. Think about this. No masterpiece was ever created in a single brushstroke. No novel was ever written in a single sentence. No symphony was ever played in one note. Life doesn't demand that we finish everything all at once. Life simply asks us to begin. Here's the truth: productivity isn't perfection. It's not about having it all figured out or getting everything done flawlessly. It's about movement, forward motion. Progress, one small, intentional action at a time. And let me tell you something, it's those tiny actions, those seemingly insignificant beginnings that hold the power to transform everything. Have you ever noticed that the hardest part of anything is starting? It's like trying to push a car out of a rut. At first it's heavy, resistant, unmoving, but the moment you give it that first push, just a little momentum, it begins to roll. Slowly at first, but then faster and faster, and suddenly what once felt impossible is now unstoppable. That's the magic of starting. But here's the catch. Too many of us wait. We wait for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, the perfect mood. We tell ourselves, I'll start when I feel ready. But let me ask you this, what if readiness is a myth? What if ready is just an illusion we use to delay the life we're meant to live? Let me share a story. A friend of mine, let's call him David, had been dreaming of writing a book for years. He'd talk about it all the time, say things like, I need more time, or I'm waiting for the inspiration to hit. And then one day I asked him, David, what's stopping you from writing just one sentence today? Not a chapter, not a page, just one sentence. That simple question changed everything. He wrote one sentence that day, and then another the next. And within a year, the book he'd been dreaming about for a decade was finished. You see, the secret isn't to focus on finishing, it's to focus on starting, on creating that spark of momentum. Because here's the thing, momentum feeds itself. The moment you take that first step, you create energy, excitement, possibility. And that energy propels you forward to the next step, and the next, and the next. But let's get real. Starting can feel terrifying. Why? Because starting is vulnerable. It means stepping into the unknown, facing the fear of failure, and risking imperfection. But here's a radical idea. What if failure isn't something to fear? What if imperfection isn't something to avoid? What if they're part of the process? Let me tell you something, failure isn't the opposite of success, it's the birthplace of success. Every stumble, every mistake, every misstep, it's teaching you, shaping you, preparing you for what's next. And guess what? You can't fail if you never start, but you also can't succeed. So the question becomes, are you willing to begin? Even if you're not perfect. Pause for a moment and think about a seed. That tiny, unremarkable thing doesn't look like much, does it? But when you plant it, when you give it a chance, it grows. Slowly, quietly, steadily, it becomes something extraordinary. A tree, a flower, a forest. That seed doesn't bloom overnight, and neither will you. But it has to be planted. It has to begin. And maybe you're thinking, but what if I don't know how to begin? That's okay. None of us do, not really. But beginnings don't have to be big, they just have to be. Write one word. Take one deep breath. Make one phone call. It doesn't matter how small the action is, what matters is that you take it. Because every great journey begins the same way, with a single step. I want you to imagine something. Close your eyes and picture a domino, just one. Now imagine that domino tipping over, hitting another, and another, and another. A chain reaction. But it all starts with that first domino. That's your life. That's your dream. waiting for you to tip it into motion. And here's the kicker: once you begin, something amazing happens. That fear, that doubt, that resistance, it starts to melt away. Because action creates clarity, motion creates momentum, and before you know it, what once felt impossible starts to feel inevitable. So let me ask you, what's the one thing you can begin today? Not finished, not perfect, just begin. Maybe it's a project you've been putting off. Maybe it's a phone call you've been dreading. Maybe it's a dream you've been too afraid to chase. Whatever it is, take one step, and then another. And trust that those steps will lead you exactly where you need to go. Because here's the beautiful truth: you don't have to see the whole path to take the first step. You don't have to know the whole story to write the first word. You don't have to finish the whole puzzle to place the first piece. You just have to begin, right here, right now. One action at a time. Think about this: procrastination isn't just about delaying tasks, it's about where your focus lies. Most of the time, we procrastinate because we're staring at the wrong picture. We're fixated on the fear of failure, on what could go wrong, on the weight of everything that hasn't even happened yet. But what if just for a moment you shifted that focus? What if you stopped looking at the mountain in front of you and started dreaming about the view from the top? What if you traded fear for curiosity, worry for excitement, hesitation for joy? You see, procrastination isn't a problem, it's a pattern. A habit of feeding your energy into fear instead of possibility. And here's the truth: where your attention goes, your energy flows. So if you're constantly focused on how hard something feels, how uncertain the outcome is, or how you might fail, what kind of energy are you creating? Heavy, stagnant, unmotivated energy. It's no wonder you feel stuck. But the moment you turn your attention to what's possible, something incredible happens. Fear begins to shrink, and your energy begins to soar. Pause for a second and really think about that. Imagine a beam of light, your attention shining on different parts of your life. When you aim it at your fears, what grows? More fear, more doubt, more paralysis. But when you aim that light at possibility, something shifts. Suddenly the shadows recede and you can see clearly again. That's the power of your focus. It's not just about what you're looking at, it's about what you're energizing, what you're bringing to life. Here's a quick story. A friend of mine, let's call him David, always wanted to write a book. He had the ideas, the vision, even the first few chapters outlined, but he never started. Every day he'd sit down, stare at his computer, and then nothing. Why? Because his focus was stuck on all the wrong things. He'd think about the competition, the critiques, the endless revisions. And the more he thought about those things, the heavier the task felt. Then one day something clicked for him. He decided to stop thinking about how hard it might be and started focusing on the joy of creating. He told me, I realized I was looking at writing as this big, scary mountain. But when I shifted my focus to the adventure of it, the joy of telling a story, the excitement of discovering where it could go, it stopped feeling so overwhelming. And you know what happened? He didn't just write that book, he loved every minute of it. Procrastination melted away the moment he started focusing on what was possible instead of what could go wrong. Now ask yourself, where's your focus right now? Are you caught up in the fear of not being good enough, fast enough, perfect enough? Or are you looking at the possibilities, the doors that could open, the growth that could happen, the joy you could feel? Because here's the secret: energy follows focus. Shift your thoughts and you'll shift your energy. Shift your energy and you'll shift your entire experience. Think about the last time you were truly excited about something. Remember how effortless it felt to take action. You weren't worrying about whether you'd fail or whether you were doing it perfectly. You were caught up in the joy of it. That's the energy you're looking for. And it's already inside you. It's just waiting for you to unlock it. Let me share something you might not have considered before. Procrastination often isn't about the task itself. It's about the story you're telling yourself about that task. If your story is, this is too hard, or I'm not good enough, then of course you'll hesitate. But if you change the story to, this is an opportunity, or I can't wait to see what I create, everything shifts. Your story becomes your reality. So I ask you, what story are you telling yourself right now? And more importantly, is it helping you or holding you back? Here's a practice you can try today, right now even. Take a task you've been putting off and ask yourself, what's one thing about this that excites me? Maybe it's the sense of accomplishment you'll feel. Maybe it's the new skills you'll gain. Maybe it's the way this task could open doors to something even bigger. Whatever it is, focus on that. Let it be your anchor. Because when you root yourself in possibility, the fear starts to fade. It doesn't vanish completely, but it becomes manageable. And that's when you can move forward. You don't have to see the whole staircase to take the first step. You just have to trust that each step will reveal the next one. That's what focusing on possibility does. It turns the unknown into an adventure. It replaces dread with curiosity, resistance with flow. And here's the best part. The more you practice this, the easier it gets. Every time you choose possibility over fear, you're rewiring your brain. You're teaching yourself that action isn't something to dread, it's something to celebrate. You're creating a new pattern, a new habit, one that turns procrastination into momentum. So the next time you catch yourself hesitating, remember this procrastination isn't a stop sign, it's a signal that your focus needs to shift. Take a deep breath. Look at the task in front of you, and instead of asking, what if I fail? Ask, what's possible here? Ask, what could I create? What could I learn? What could I become? Because here's the truth, your life is a canvas, and every task, every moment is another brushstroke. You get to choose the colors. You get to decide whether you paint in fear or in possibility. So pick up the brush. Choose the boldest, brightest colors you can imagine and start creating, not because you have to, not because someone else expects you to, but because you get to. Because the act of creating, of doing, of becoming, it's one of the greatest joys of being alive. Thanks for joining me today. If you found value in this discussion, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more motivational content. Share your thoughts in the comments below.